Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, September 13th, 2023 episode. Here, the Midweek Report for the Boxing Source. That's right, the Midweek Report is here. It's live. It's going down, you know. And yeah, it's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time because right now I am currently in the West Coast. So I'm kind of like 3 hours behind or 3 hours back from being there in the East Coast here. So instead of having it around 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, I have midweek report or this midweek report at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. But that still does not uh, say that there isn't a lot to talk about here on this midweek report. I mean, we got a number of things to talk about, a number of things to catch up on, and definitely have some takes on some of the topics here that are going down within the sport of boxing. We definitely wanted to touch on what the latest update was in reference to a fight in the lightweight division. Of course, this is the first topic on the docket here for the midweek report. And here to join us for the midweek report, of course, is our great contributor here for the Boxing Source. It is MVO Uncensored in the building. What's happening?
Hey, what's going on, JR? I'm glad to be on today, man. Looks like we got a lot of stuff to get into so far. A lot of stuff we got to unpack. Looking
Yeah.
forward to talking about all this stuff here on the Midweek Report.
Yeah, for sure, man. We got to get right into it. I mean, first on the docket, we have the lightweight division. We supposedly had this fight that was supposed to go down between Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin. But as of what we had on the Boxing Source radio show, we had the report that it was kind of called off or pretty much was scratched. And then here, basically today, now we see that it was like all the way eliminated, and that there was an announcement, or at least a report, from Mike Coppinger, of all people, stating that Shakur Stevenson will be facing Edwin De Los Santos, and that will be on, what was that, Thursday, November 16th. And, basically Shakur Stevenson and Edwin De Los Santos kind of like confirmed it in a sense on Twitter, or at least with what Edwin De Los Santos stated today. But we still have a lot to unpack here in reference to this overall story. First off, the part about Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin falling apart. Now, we seem to have gotten a number of things here in reference to Frank Martin, particularly on his side in this case of potentially having a fight with Shakur Stevenson. Because it seems like, coming from reports around, looks like around the camp or whatever it is, looks like that really didn't get off the ground of sorts. Um, MVO, do you have some insight on this before I, attempt to go a little bit more into this?
Well, from what I understand about the situation, uh, Frank Martin essentially got the money that they were looking for him. Um, Obviously, this was done between uh, TGB and Top Rank. That's why the WBC purse bid was canceled. They said that they had reached a deal. Now you have people from Frank Martin's side saying Frank Martin wasn't involved in the negotiations. I don't see why he would be involved in the negotiations anyway, because you're a fighter. Be a fighter. You have a manager and a promoter for a reason. Now, if you did not want TGB representing you in negotiations, then you should have said that to the WBC when they sent out an email to the representatives of each fighter. Okay, the reason why TGB is the one that they contact, because they're the ones listed as his representation when it comes to stuff like this. So I don't see it at all. Now, my thing is, we still have not heard from the WBC. So do we know that Shakur Stevenson is allowed to fight Edwin De Los Santos for the vacant WBC lightweight title? We don't know that. So what we have to do is we have to wait till about Saturday when the WBC makes their official ruling, and then they can sort out this situation. So for now, I'm in like wait and see approach mode, where it's like, let's see what the WBC says first before we just go assuming that Frank Martin, first of all, is not having the fight, and second of all, that Edwin De Los Santos is now fighting for the WBC vacant lightweight title.
Well, that is interesting comments there. Like I was saying, you already had Edwin De Los Santos supposedly stating that he is next up to face Shakur Stevenson in November. That's number one. Number two, the thing there with Frank Martin, and you talked about who was listed as his representation for this particular negotiation period, with Top Rank, and that is TGB Promotions. But now there have been reports out there that it was not necessarily TGB Promotions that put a halt to this. It was Man Down Promotions, in reference to who was affiliated with Errol Spence, and the trainer for Frank Martin, Mr. Derek James, that kind of put a halt to that fight, reportedly not taking place or not going forward. So coming from that, it's like, okay, was it Derek James and Errol Spence, the party that kind of put a halt to uh, having Shakur Stevenson not be next there for Frank Martin, or what else is going on with that? Because that is what's been going around as far as like why Frank Martin and Shakur Stevenson looks like that fight has been basically falling apart, regardless of what the WBC has basically or will basically uh, make a statement for in reference to the order that they made.
Yeah, I completely see what you mean with that. I'm just wondering, Frank Martin, if you're not fighting Shakur Stevenson next, then what the fuck are you doing with your career? Because if you're not fighting Shakur next, we're not accepting any of a fight but a tank fight. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you gotta either put up or shut up. This was his chance to make like so much money, so much more than he's ever made before. Okay. And this, in my opinion, was a very winnable fight. Maybe he doesn't feel like he can win the fight. I don't know. But like I said, until I hear from the WBC, I'm not going to say that Frank Martin is not fighting Shakur. I'm not going to go by what Mike Combager says, because Mike Combager is only reporting from the Top Rank side of things. He has no type of sources with the PBC. He has no relationship with anybody with PBC. He is strictly reporting how Top Rank feels about the situation. So let's just see what the WBC says.
Now, in reference to Frank Martin himself, as of September 12th, or the morning of September 12th, he had stated on Twitter that he says that he wanted the fight with Shakur Stevenson, just like his fans wanted the fight. And he stated that he never asked for no 50-50 split. And that is in reference to, what Shakur Stevenson had claimed that Frank Martin wanted in order for that fight to take place. So as of right now, it seems like we don't necessarily know what's going on around the camp or in the camp or anything like that. But there's, like I said, there are a number of reports about maybe something happening within the camp as far as like communication is concerned, in reference to making that fight take place or whatnot. Got another person joining in to react to this and other news here for the Midweek Report. The Boxing Academic is joining us here for the Midweek Report. What's happening?
Not much. How y'all guys doing?
We cool, man. I'm out on the West Coast. That's why I had to delay the Midweek Report for about an hour. But wanted to jump into the whole thing here with Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin, and MBO said like the report about Shakur Stevenson fighting Edwin De Los Santos, kind of seems like it's premature, but I mean, maybe it goes in line with a number of those reports that have been coming out in reference to those updates with Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin. It seemed like it came from one particular reporter, and that same reporter is the one that released the news about Shakur Stevenson facing Edwin De Los Santos. You know what I'm saying?
I
You
have
have
an
any thoughts?
unpopular opinion.
Go ahead and share it with us, Boxing Academic.
This is feeling awfully a lot like it felt with Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. Like, I get it. I want these guys to get their money. I want them to get paid. I respect that. But all the drama, it just, it just feels like I should stay away from it. So I'm gonna let you guys talk about it.
Well, I do have something there in reference to the latest news though, and if it is official or not. And I don't know if you had something to say, MVO, but I was going to say something in reference to that announcement of the De Los Santos fight.
Oh, what were you gonna say?
Well, a couple of things in reference to it. That it kind of felt strange, so to speak, right? Because it's funny how it would kind of come quick, or at least come fairly quickly after a report saying that fight with Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin fell apart. And within days, they say, oh, a deal has been reached with Shakur Stevenson and Edwin De Los Santos after there was supposedly a report that there was a deal or an agreement reached between Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin. Something just doesn't seem right in that sense, you know.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I ain't really trying to hear from Frank Martin like that. Like, we are wasting too many brain cells on Frank Martin. Like, nigga, is you gonna fight or not? That's it. Like, let me know.
Oh my goodness, yo, that's wild. That's wild. But what about this whole thing with Shakur Stevenson and Edwin De Los Santos? All right, MVO. Here's the thing here with Shakur Stevenson and Edwin De Los Santos. On a level of Stephen A. Smith to 10, how much do you care about that fight?
I am about a one, like a one, like it just doesn't do it for me. You know, like, didn't you say Edwin De Los Santos lost to that William Foster the third guy?
Yes, he did.
So why don't he get the Shakur fight? If that's what we're doing with this, like, I don't get it.
Like, I mean, what we had William Foster the third recently on what was it? Pro Box TV, man. He was just on Pro Box TV.
Yeah, he'll be ready by November.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you got William Foster the third there on Pro Box TV, who beat Edwin De Los Santos, but De Los Santos is what was it? He faced or beat Joseph Adorno in July. Like, and yes, I was at that fight in July where they fought Joseph Adorno, and he almost had a clean sweep over Joseph Adorno. And I was like, I'm sorry, I was not all too impressed with him. He did have a couple of KOs before that, but that one was, what was it? I think that was even like a co-feature bout there too. Boots versus Villa, right? And they put him on that spot, and I'm like, okay, all right, we gonna see here. You said that you the one of the best lightweights out there. You were calling out Shakur Stevenson. You were doing this. You were doing that, and then you get fit in a fight against Joseph Adorno, and you put up that particular performance where yeah, you pretty much like blew him out, but you didn't stop him or anything like that. So it's like, why would a number of fans be interested in seeing you fight? A number of those other guys there at 135. So, but I just feel like Shakur versus De Los Santos was a much easier pull for a Thursday night TV slot on ESPN than a Shakur versus a Frank Martin. I just so that's that. I mean, WBC probably could make a statement. What is it within the next couple of days? But yeah, I just feel like if they would have just had something where they made the statement already saying that okay, Frank Martin is going a different direction or things didn't work out with negotiations, then we would have had something. But all of these other reports that have been coming out about there being trouble in the camp or some conflicts in reference to promotional duties or anything like that. Like I don't know what's going on with all that, man.
Yeah, I don't get it. I just want to know why the WBC hasn't made a statement. I feel like that might lead one to believe that maybe this Frank Martin fight is not over and done with. I think maybe Top Rank is trying to pressure Frank Martin into signing his name on the dotted line because maybe Frank is still trying to angle himself for a Tank fight. And he's probably trying to keep his option open because usually they don't even bother with the contracts until like close to the fight. So I'm curious as to why they want these contracts pen to paper like months before the fight. I just think they worry that Shakur might lose him as an opponent. So they try to put pressure on him publicly.
Yeah, that could be it. And my thing is too is like if you're gonna have that particular order that you post out there, and then you say that you have a deadline or whatever it is, and then they had made something where agreement of sorts was reached before that deadline, but apparently there wasn't. Why didn't you make a statement? Kind of like addressing that. You know, if the fight actually did fall apart, or whatever it is, or if it completely is scrapped, then why hasn't the WBC made a statement in reference to that?
Exactly.
You know,
And then
so,
what happens with Frank Martin in the rankings?
yeah, but here's the thing, though. They already released the rankings for the WBC this month.
Yeah, but that was September 8th that they released it. So they released it September 8th, which was when they thought they had the agreement in principle. Because the purse bid was supposed to be September 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So by September 8th, they thought they had an agreement in principle. And then that's when you get the report from Mike Coppinger saying, oh, Martin's team backed out.
Yeah, because I mean, by the time they had that agreement or had the news of the agreement, that's when the WBC had made the modification to put Frank Martin at number two in the WBC ranking, so they would have
Yep,
number one versus number two. You know what I'm saying? So I mean that kind of like is something where it's kind of weird too, because if I'm not mistaken, if you have the WBC title vacant, and I mean this kind of like goes in line with what they usually do, is that whoever wins the vacant WBC title has to defend against the next highest ranked contender, basically.
yep,
So if you had, Stevenson versus Martin, then the winner of that would have faced the next highest ranked contender. And as of right now, you got at least two of those guys that aren't necessarily available because Vasyl Lomachenko ain't gonna be out there until 2024, and it looks like he's gonna be facing George Kambosos.
uh-huh.
And then you got Isak Cruz that looks like he'll be, facing Tank Davis if it
I
ain't
don't
gonna
know
be
about
Frank
that.
Martin. I don't know
I don't know
about
about
that
that.
either. I don't know about that either.
Because word on the street is your boy is getting that Tank fight. Mr. Capitol Hills, Maryland himself.
Oh,
That's the word
I
on the
have to.
street.
There's word on the street. I'm gonna have to hit up one of my guys out there in the Upton camp. Reference to that, but we'll see. Hopefully, if it's the case, man, I'll say this: if it's in DC, oh Lord, I don't know if I'm gonna go. It might be a little bit too dangerous.
It's like going to a high school basketball game, right?
Yep, you're exactly right. High school basketball game, rivalry game in
Always
the
ending
city.
gunshots.
Hey, always. Yo, that would be wild, yo.
Now, one of your
Um,
listeners want to know about this. What's going on with this Frank Martin leaving Derek James and Man Down Promotions rumor?
yeah. Now I had addressed this a little bit earlier there, Juice, and this was, coming from, I guess, what they say, the Spit Bucket podcast, or wherever it is. They're located in the Texas area, around the
That's
Dallas
Corey
area. Yeah,
Bradshaw.
yes, correct, Bradshaw. There, and they had said like it was something in reference to a conflict between the team of Derek James and Errol Spence Jr. in with Frank Martin, and they said like Frank Martin hadn't been featured as much as he wanted to, and that it's saying like what is it, that Derek James and Errol Spence is like a package deal. It's like if is there with Derek James is a trainer, you got to have, Errol Spencer Man Down Promotions as your, lead promotional company. So if you're, not going to be down with either one or one or the other, then that's that. It's there. You're completely out of it. And, I don't know, man. I mean, that kind of like, for me, it kind of like goes into, how the stable is they're over in Dallas, but that's coming from like the trainer perspective, and we kind of like talk about this MVO, that when you have a number of fighters there in your stable and you having these fights or these high profile fights back to back to back, you as a trainer, you're not gonna be able to have the time that you need with a number of these guys. You know what I'm saying? And for me, it's like with the exception of Jamel Charlo, because I mean Jamel Charlo, not only has Derek James, but he has a number of other trainers out there, like Juan Guzman also that's there, with him. So I mean, at least he has a good number of guys that are experienced, that are there in the camp with them. Not just with Derek James, but with these other guys, they just have Derek James solely there, in his corner as a lead guy. So if you're dealing with someone like Errol Spence, Anthony Joshua, Frank Martin, now you could potentially have Ryan Garcia, who was reported to possibly have his next fight coming up in November as well. So how would that look if you were going to have Frank Martin in a fight against Shakur Stevenson in November, and also have Ryan Garcia be involved in a fight in November, and also have Errol Spence involved in a rematch with Terrence Crawford that's scheduled for December?
Yep. Here's my thing though. Uh, Frank Martin. Frank Martin can't really complain about not being featured because his last two fights were Showtime main events. So what are we really talking about here? Like he was featured on basically every big Errol Spence card leading up to him getting his own main events. So I don't understand what's going on with that. He fought 3 times last year. He's gonna fight twice this year. So it's not like they can say that he's not active. So I don't think he really has any gripe with Man Down Promotions. Now, if he feels like Derek James ain't the trainer for him, okay, then say that.
That man
You
said you
know,
brought too many people in this stable.
well, it'll be like that. It's that English muffin, but I ain't gonna say
Oh,
nothing. It's Top Boy over there, Top Boy. Telling you,
He probably paying the most out of everybody.
This is true. And that's why he over there.
Oh man. Oh, but hey, though. I mean, like I said, a while ago, this is just like how you had Eddie Reynoso with all those guys in the camp. You can't, focus on all them guys and have, Canelo Alvarez on your stable like that, where, Canelo's been your guy since, the beginning. So how are you gonna have, the time that you need to have with all of those other fighters when your main guy is, Canelo Alvarez? You know what I'm saying? So same here with Derek James, man. That you got a lot on your plate, and you can't, have a whole buffet of food out there. You're gonna have to portion it out, my guy. It looks like, So I mean, Frank, yeah, I'm not sure if he's gonna, be able to be in there with someone like a Tank Davis, like MVO you suggested is that was the alternative, but outside of that, man, I don't see it either. Now, one thing I could have saw or could have seen as a potential thing for Frank Martin is if he fought Isak Cruz, if you're gonna have Tank Davis fight Mr. Gary Russell Jr., then you could have had Frank Martin there against Isak Cruz. Now, I don't know if that would have been for a WBA regular title because you're gonna have Tank Davis be elevated to, super champion or not, but who knows? But yeah, outside of that, me personally, I just didn't see how a fight with Shakur Stevenson being on Thursday, November 16th on the ESPN slot would have worked out. I just didn't see how that would have worked out, for all parties involved.
Yeah, but it's not like he didn't know the date to begin with. We've known for months now that Shakur was coming back on November 16th on a Thursday. So no one cannot say that they did not go into the situation eyes wide open. You got basically the money you was looking for. You already knew the date. You should have never agreed. Like, I don't get it. Your representation that was registered with the WBC agreed to a deal with Top Rank. I don't want to hear anything after that.
Well, what if it was like the report coming out that it was Derek James was the one that kind of nixed the deal, not TGB?
That's not his place, in my opinion. His job is to train. Maybe if he was focused more on training, our responsible when he got his ass whipped in July. Worry about training. Don't worry about the business side of it. You have representation for a reason. Everybody has their role. Let everyone play their role.
Man, let Errol Spence get his payback on an equal deal on this fight, since he had to give half the pot to Terrence Crawford.
As Errol Spence claimed, he's like he was the one that
But he was
had
never
made
getting
the
50-50
concessions.
boxing academic.
So what?
He was never getting 50-50.
You saying
Frank Martin.
I'm saying Errol Spence Promotions wants to get some get back for him losing the negotiation part, for losing negotiation and having to give up 50-50 in the Terrence Crawford Errol Spence fight. So he getting his payback for trying to get Frank Martin to get something close to 50-50.
Well, then he should have went to purse bid. Like, I don't get it. It's not like purse bid wasn't an option. So here's the other thing. I don't think TGB and PBC are going to be very happy with Frank Martin for the simple fact that they weren't going to have to pay for this fight at all.
Right.
This fight was completely being financed by Top Rank. So not only are you potentially nixing this deal, now that's more money coming out of the PBC Showtime budget to pay for your next fight. And against who? So for me, he really screwed up a lot of things. So I hope he has a real plan in place. I hope he has some smart people in his corner if he did, in fact, turn down this fight with Shakur Stevenson.
I'm sure somebody from his corner had to tell him not to take that. Somebody, that's close to that administration.
We'll see.
Yeah,
Why
we'll
would
see.
PBC want to pay 1.5 million for Frank Martin's next fight? Why would they want to do that if his next fight was going to be for free, for a title shot, and on ESPN, which is going to get him a lot of exposure?
I mean, that's very, very attractive the way you put it.
Well, I mean, it's straightforward because the thing about it is, it's not like TGB or well, I don't know if Frank Martin would also be advised by Heyman, but they've had fighters, go over and have fights on, of course, other promotional, organizations. They've had fighters be on top rank of, before, of course, and they've had top rank be able to pay for those fights. So they wouldn't have to, fit the bill for paying a fighter. They wouldn't have to fit the bill for having the TV slot or anything like that, be set aside for those fighters. So now it's like, okay, Frank Martin didn't necessarily go forward with this deal. So now it's like, okay, if you're not going to be fighting Shakur Stevenson, now who are you going to be fighting? And do we even have a time slot or a spot for you to have a fight? I mean, here we are. We're at what, September 13th. We don't have that many weeks left here in 2023. So you're gonna say that we're gonna fit you in a slot that we have coming up, whether it's setting aside for a Showtime, a Showtime boxing main event, or putting you on a card for a pay per view. I don't know about all that, So yeah, it's looking messy, on a lot of sides, but for Frank Martin's side, it does, look, not very good for him on this part because he has to, now say, okay, what was the reason why he wasn't able to have a deal secured for a fight against Shakur Stevenson? So I mean, he's gonna have to, go ahead and figure out a way to explain that. But we'll see how that goes, man. Definitely we'll see how that goes. But next thing on the docket there, man, is the we had, what was it, comments yesterday out there in reference to Mr. Terrence Crawford, the undisputed welterweight champion. Yeah, he made comments directed to Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman, and he said that Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman will never, and I mean never, get a shot at the top dog, and that's me. He said that y'all didn't want no smoke when I wanted to fight. Now y'all want to fight so bad. Keep fighting each other like before. Those words from Terrence Crawford. Now, of course, you did have a response on from Danny Garcia that was on Twitter where you said, "Hey, right now I'm good. I got money. I got this. I got real estate." I said, "Why fight you for all the belts when you have to pay all that money for sanctioning fees? I can use that to buy real estate." And also you had Keith Thurman that responded to those comments. There he was on Fight Hub TV yesterday, and he made comments in reference to Terrence Crawford, and he kind of referenced, the time where Terrence Crawford had that time in between where he could have fought Keith Thurman, especially after Keith Thurman defeated Mario Barrios in February of last year. He had that whole time where he said he was available to fight Terrence Crawford, and well, I guess Terrence Crawford, didn't necessarily call his name. So, and I know that in between that time, I thought, hey, if you were having that break in between, not fighting Errol Spence, you could have went ahead and fought Keith Thurman. So where was that at? And that's what Thurman is kind of bringing up. Is like, I was available that whole year, and you didn't even give me a phone call. So what was that all about? But also the thing there with Terrence Crawford, he was talking about the whole other side of the street type of stuff and this and that in regard to what was happening in the past, because both Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman were mentioned as opponents for Terrence Crawford, while Crawford was with Top Rank. And of course, we know in particular about the Danny Garcia one. So I just felt like those comments there from Terrence Crawford, especially now, is kind of interesting, so to speak. Like MVO, what do you got about first with what Terrence Crawford said, and if you also heard about what Keith Thurman said in response to it.
I ain't mad at it. He's the kingmaker right now. If he don't want to fight them, he don't want to fight them. It is what it is. Danny Garcia, he's supposed to be fighting Evers Landy Lara next for the 160-pound belt. So let him go do that. And Keith Thurman, fight Boots. If Terrence Crawford not gonna fight you, fight Boots. There are other options. Listen, Keith Thurman, he is Terrence Crawford's only other lucrative option at 147. So if Terrence Crawford want to make money at 147, Keith Thurman is his dance partner. If he's decided to go up to 154, or better yet, he's looking to fight the winner of Canelo versus Charlo, then he'll do his thing, and you won't see the 147 Terrence Crawford no more. But I think right now Terrence Crawford has the boxing world at his disposal, and whatever he chooses to do is whatever he chooses to do. I ain't mad at it. Now, as for Keith Thurman, fight Boots. Danny Garcia, sign the Lara fight. Go after that middleweight title. Go after history. Don't worry about Terrence Crawford right now. Terrence Crawford has the Spence rematch, and he's eyeing a Canelo fight. So he got bigger fish to fry, so to speak.
Oh, I see how you did that there. It's kind of interesting there with the comments about Keith Thurman and him potentially fighting Boots Ennis, because that's basically been the fight that's been out there for Keith Thurman for some time, and it just doesn't seem like he's really jumped at it, so to speak, or whatever it is. I know that he's made comments about it on multiple occasions, but the thing about it is like he said like, hey, whenever they call my number, it says like Boots Ennis isn't the name that they mentioned to me as far as like who I could fight. So I don't know, but for Keith Thurman, he's like he said, he's wanted to face Terrence Crawford, and he said in reference to that Spence fight, he's like that version of Errol Spence, would have lost to Sean Porter, or he would have lost to your Dennis Ugas, or he said he definitely would have lost to Keith one-time Thurman. Yeah, but he said like he would have had a much different fight against Terrence Crawford that Errol Spence had there on July 29th there. So I'm like, I don't know, man. I think a number of boxing fans just want to see Keith Thurman fight. I think that's pretty much the bottom line, is that they just want to see Keith Thurman fight. So I mean, he's been having these appearances. He's been on Fight Hub. He's been on thing there with of course with Lefty and all that, and made these other appearances. But we want to see him fight. And the crazy thing is that what we got here in a couple of weeks, we got your Dennis Ugas, who folks thought Keith Thurman was going to fight, but Ugas is going to end up fighting Mario Barrios, who Keith Thurman beat, and it's going to be for the interim WBC title. So it's like, well, what's going on here? If he ain't fighting your Dennis Ugas for the interim WBC title, then who is Thurman going to be fighting? And it's like, I don't know, man. You got to figure out what's going on with Keith one-time Thurman. You know what I mean? The boxing academic, man, I know that we made comments on Keith Thurman. What do you think about what he's saying?
I think Keith Thurman spoke a lot, if not enough, truth in what he said. I think that MVO is right in his assertion at 147. If Terrence Crawford wants to make money, if he wants to have the biggest fight at 147 and maximize on his earning potential, he'll fight Keith Thurman. And to me, with the way that Errol Spence lost, I would have to put Errol Spence at 3 or 4, which makes Keith Thurman number 2. You know, it's just off the body of work. And until he lose again, you got to put him in that number 2 spot for his body of work. Or, you know, maybe you keep Errol Spence there, but just the way that he lost it kind of and then his future prospects just make me question if he is the 3rd best fighter or even the 4th best fighter, you know, because he may not have too much longer. And I hope that I'm wrong on that. But I don't know. I feel kind of disappointed by Terrence Crawford's words. I get it. You're like, nah. You didn't show me love, so I ain't gonna show you love. I get it, but the best fight he can make right now, that's realistic, is Keith Thurman. The biggest fight he can make is Keith Thurman. Canelo ain't finna fight him. Charlo ain't finna fight him. Throw any other names. Obviously, Errol Spence.
Yeah, Errol Spence is like the only one that's out there that's really, pushing out there to fight Terrence Crawford like that, where maybe Terrence Crawford has any type of interest in fighting him. Of course, Crawford was like saying, "Hey, I want to fight, Charlo. Want to fight, Canelo Alvarez." And like Wells said, I'm like, Canelo is not interested in fighting Terrence Crawford at this point.
Because what's in it for him? Like, it's only thing there is for him to lose something. I get it. And it's no different between Keith Thurman and Boots. I agree with Keith Thurman on that. Like, it ain't right per se, but Keith Thurman has paved his way and has earned the Terrence Crawford fight. I can't say the same thing for Boots. Boots will probably give him the best fight. We can all agree on that. But outside of Errol Spence, Keith Thurman has earned that right, with his only loss coming from Manny Pacquiao in a very contested fight. Split decision. That body shot didn't land in the 10th round or whatever round it landed. Keith Thurman would have very well won that fight. I don't know, man. I just maybe Terrence Crawford's plans are more grand, as MVO put it, than or somebody said it. One of y'all said it. It's more grand than Keith Thurman, but in realistic terms, let's just say Errol Spence can't fight you right now. Your best bet is Keith Thurman. You've given Keith Thurman props and said it would be a tougher fight than Errol Spence. Okay, maybe we give you that. But if you beat Keith Thurman, okay, you already got the title. You're the best guy. So what I'm saying, take it with a grain of salt. But if you beat Keith Thurman at 147, which I'm not sure if Keith Thurman is coming back down to 147, but hypothetically, if you beat Keith Thurman at 147, then you literally can say you beat every top welterweight in your time, in your era. Because by substitution, by osmosis, Keith Thurman beat all the other top welterweights. Errol Spence beat all the other top welterweights, and you beat both of them too. You beat all the best welterweights in your era. Prove it to us. Show us. Show us. Like, saying that, okay, Danny Garcia, I get that one, whatever. But I don't know. I think Keith Thurman has earned that. And if not, I could say Boots, but that doesn't seem realistic to me for either Keith Thurman or Terrence Crawford.
Yeah. And, Boots is the guy that, of course, he's very talented. He's, probably one of the more, exciting fighters out there in the welterweight division, but he's not, part of that era of the Danny Garcia, the Sean Porter, the Errol Spence, the Terrence Crawford, Keith Thurman. So if you had Terrence Crawford, If he's not, facing Errol Spence, then Keith Thurman would be that last guy because he basically had those wins over the Sean Porter, the Errol Spence, even with the Kell Brook, even though Kell Brook was, way past it at the time. But then you had those notable wins, and then you would have Keith Thurman, and then be able to defeat Keith Thurman. And it could be like if you were able to do it emphatically as well, then you could, really stamp your name as a guy that truly cleaned out that era of the welterweight division. And to, not have that, be on your docket, I mean, they might, have something to, have something that, was left to be desired. But, I think, for many people, they just feel like, with Terrence Crawford defeating Errol Spence for those undisputed welterweight titles, that was, basically enough, for Terrence Crawford to, make his name there at welterweight. So
the only thing about that though is the way that the fight went down. I'm not taking anything away from Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford is the man. No one can refute that. Terrence Crawford is the man. However, Keith Thurman has a point. That version of Errol Spence, Keith Thurman would have beat that version of Errol Spence. The Keith Thurman that I'm thinking of, unless Keith Thurman then fell off as much too, that the version of Keith Thurman I'm thinking of would have beat that Errol Spence. Ugas, depending on if Ugas, so both him and Ugas and Spence, probably a lot has been taken out of both of those guys. But let's just assume that Ugas still has a lot more. I'm not sure Errol Spence beats the next version of Ugas, like with the way that he couldn't take them shots. And, Terrence Crawford got dynamite in his hand. So let's be clear on that. But his punch resistance was just compromised. I don't think he could have beat many of them top guys. I'm not writing the man off. I'm just saying I'm just not sure neurologically if his time has not came. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that the little doctor who came on YouTube is wrong. But the last one that's there is Keith Thurman. Knock him off. And nobody can say anything. But he has earned his path and he can do what he wants. It's just kind of it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth personally.
I feel you.
I'm gonna take my ball and run, go home type stuff.
Well, basically, but even with that, right? It kind of like it mimics the situation when Errol Spence had all those titles before he faced Terrence Crawford. Keith Thurman was there. When Errol Spence said he just didn't feel like there was any point, for him to face Keith Thurman. He just wanted to go ahead and have his fights with Ugas, and then after Ugas went ahead and fought Terrence Crawford and just wanted that one fight against Terrence Crawford. So even with what Keith Thurman said as far as like his reaction to Crawford's comments, like either one of those guys could have fought Keith Thurman there at least at the second half of 2022, and they didn't do it. So it's like Keith Thurman was basically just sitting out there saying, hey, I mean, who's out there to fight me? I guess if these two, don't want to fight me, then I mean, it just feels like it just didn't feel beneficial to fight against anyone else at that time. But like I said, with Thurman, he's gonna have to find a way to get in with a fight with somebody, because here we are in September, man. It's almost the end of 2023, and they still don't have a fight. And I've said before, there's really not that many dates out there available or time slots to fill for him. So yeah, he's gonna have to figure out a way to get back in the mix in the welterweight division. And I'm not sure if a fight against a guy that's not drawn in this, that's not Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence is gonna raise the antennas of boxing fans out there for Keith Thurman. So
I got one.
All right, who?
Rematch with Pacquiao.
I think Manny Pacquiao much rather fight the 2024 Olympics than to get in there with Keith Thurman once again. I don't know, man. That would, yeah. Uh, with Manny Pacquiao, I'll be interested with a rematch with Keith Thurman. That would be the main question, though.
Yeah,
Uh,
I wouldn't think so, but you know,
so yeah, man, I don't know, man. We'll have to see what would be next there for Keith one time Thurman in the near future. But like he said, man, he really wants that fight there with Terrence Crawford. He's like, man, I'm the man out here, man. I'm still out here. I'm been ready. I've been ready. I've been calling you out, particularly since after the Barrios fight. So I don't know, man. If they have that rematch secured between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, then Keith Thurman will just be out there hanging around, man. I don't think he'll have a fight until maybe January or February, man. I just don't know. That being said, I got this one last one here. Devin Haney and Regis Prograis looks like they'll be fighting in December, and it could be over in San Francisco. They're around the home area for Devin Haney, who's pretty much from Oakland. I know that there have been reports out there that it would have been for October 28th, but I don't even know where in the world that was coming from because multiple parties from Haney's camp, from Progress's camp, and all that said that the fight would be scheduled in December, and yeah, that'll be for the WBC super lightweight title. A number of people are kind of leaning. I don't know if they're leaning towards Devin Haney, favoring him in this matchup or not. But this would be him moving up in weight to 140 and having his first fight at 140, going up against Regis Prograis, a two-time world champion there at 140 pounds, man. But I mean, we haven't had like a formal announcement, but it looks like they're trying to have it on the zone. I don't know if it's going to be the zone pay-per-view, but I mean, we know what Devin Haney usually pulls around for most of his fights. So if that's going to be the case, and likely this is going to be for on the zone pay per view, and with Eddie Hearn, when he's been with Eddie Hearn, he's kind of been paid good money for his fights. So this probably could be the same thing here, going up against Regis Prograis, man. MVO, if you're still out here with us, man, what are you looking at with this Haney versus Prograis, or if you even think this is a attractive fight?
Very good fight. I'm looking forward to it. I just got to find out how to stream it for free because I'm not paying $60, $70 to watch it. But they will definitely get my eyeballs. They just won't get my money.
The views of MVO Uncensored are not necessarily the views of the boxing source. Once again, the views of MVO Uncensored are not necessarily the views of the boxing source.
Just make sure you get me a link, Tech Boy.
I don't know who the hell you're talking about.
Just get me a link, Tech Boy. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know.
I have no clue what that means.
I have no clue what that means either, boxing academic. I have no clue what that means. All I want to know is if Devin Haney has the potential to be a two-division world champion against someone like Regis Prograis. Now, Regis Prograis, of course, had his last bout where he kind of looked a little bit tentative there in that fight against Danielita Zorita, or Zorilla, or whatever it was. There it is, home area of New Orleans. So he really has to come back with a serious response here in his next upcoming fight against Devin Haney, man. And I don't know. Devin Haney, of course, is kind of like rated up there in the boxing source pound for pound rankings. So, if he scores this win over Regis Prograis, that could, really help him there as far as like moving around there in the pound for pound rankings. But with it not being until December, that would kind of, halt things a little bit as far as like where he's going to be able to move up or whatever, because you're going to have a number of fights with other guys that are involved in that boxing source top 10 pound for pound that will definitely move around too. So we'll have to see how that goes, man. Boxing Academic, anything on Haney versus Prograis here at this point?
For Haney, Prograis is definitely the right guy to face to win you a belt at a higher division. Because, like you said, I mean, you didn't say this, but I'm saying that he looked kind of flat in that last fight, and obviously one fight shouldn't necessarily foretell who a fighter is, but I think Devin Haney probably has more spunk, more spring, and will be able to get shots off without without getting touched, probably, at least most of the time. But hopefully Prograis take it to him and make it an exciting fight. Because Devin Haney always seemed to get him a nice little lead in these fights. He's a nice little front runner, and then he just kind of coast and keep his lead. I don't think it won't be much different in this fight where he get off to a lead, but hopefully Prograis make it a scrap and make him uncomfortable. Big boy him a little bit, but maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't expect that to happen, but
Yeah, I wasn't gonna be too sure either because I mean I think both of these fighters are around the same size. They're around the same height. It looks like with Devin Haney looking like he has a longer reach there than Regis Prograis. So if he has a longer reach and is able to utilize that against Prograis, and he is known for having a good jab and a consistent jab, then Prograis might have to have another element to his game in order to have more success there against Devin Haney coming up on their upcoming fight. So, I don't know, man. I would kind of feel like Prograis should be able to take it, but Haney has been known to perform very well in high level or high profile fights. So I think that Haney is definitely going to be ready to step up here in this case, going up against someone like a two-time world champion in Regis Prograis. So we'll see how that goes on that, man.
So there's no chance that he won't not consider this a big fight and sort of fight down his competition.
I don't think so against the Regis Prograis. No, given that Prograis has fought in a number of good fights himself there at 140 pounds. We had that close fight against Josh Taylor, some years back. Where some people kind of felt like he could have gotten the edge on that fight. So, some people could consider him as, probably the top guy there at 140 pounds right now. It's either that him or with Teofimo Lopez. So, those guys are around there at number one or number two there at 140 pounds. So if Devin Haney comes up and gets the win here against Regis Prograis, he could, easily be one of those top guys there at 140, going. And, it seems like a number of folks may seem like they want to see a potential fight between Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez in 2024. Well, this would kind of be the stepping stone for Devin Haney if he's able to score the win over Regis Prograis to get that fight against Teofimo Lopez. So we'll see with that. Yeah. What's up?
I said that would be exciting, Teofimo and Devin Haney.
Yeah, and that fight has basically been building up, for some time now, probably since 2021 or something like that. At least at the very least when both of those guys were there at 135 pounds before Teofimo lost to George Kambosos. So that fight had definitely been brewing for some time now. So we'll see how that goes, man. First have to see, what happens with this Haney-Prograis fight, and also with Teofimo Lopez. I think that he's going to have a fight coming up in December as well. So if he does, then you'll have both of those guys featured within the same month. And if they're able to, win both of those fights, hey, we might see one of those super fights going down on that. That being said, that's the midweek report there. 1 hour, pretty much 1 hour on the dot here with this particular episode of the midweek report. Shout out to MVO1 Sunset. Shout out to the Boxing Academic for joining us live, and all of those that were joining us live here on the YouTube channel. We thank y'all for being a part of this midweek report, and we'll get back at it with the Boxing Source radio show scheduled for Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And y'all be sure to also check out the interview that we have on the YouTube channel with Mario Barrios as he is preparing for his fight against Yordenis Ugas coming up September 30th. But till then, man, I'll catch y'all later, y'all. Peace out.